"You're useless now, Mother. Try not to embarrass yourself on the way out," my daughter said, smiling wide enough for the neighbors to enjoy the show. "And don't forget your little suitcase. That's all you ever brought to this family anyway. Grief wears a black dress, but humiliation wears a brighter color so everyone can see it." The funeral lilies were still damp. The condolence tea was still warm. And yet the first cruelty bloomed faster than any bouquet on our dining table. "Hi everyone, my name is Evelyn Hart. I'm the woman people expected to break quietly, because quiet women are easy to move, easy to fold, easy to store." That afternoon, the sky was washed pale as if it had been wrung out and hung to dry above our street. My hand trembled around a brass house key I had polished for 30 years. It didn't fit my palm anymore. Nothing did. I did not argue. Grief makes your tongue a stone. I lifted my suitcase, the one with the dent near the zipper from our last beach trip, and stepped onto the porch. The boards creaked, remembering me. My daughter laughed, a careful, curated sound, the kind people practice in front of mirrors. Across the lawn, Mrs. Dawson froze halfway through dragging her trash bin, then looked down as if the asphalt itself had become fascinating. "Make it quick," my daughter said. She had my husband's eyes, hazel when kind, gold when cruel, and right now they were coins flipped and spent. I looked into the foyer one last time. The umbrella stand he carved, the handprint canvas from second grade, the gouge on the banister where a Christmas tree once scraped its way upstairs, leaving needles like green confetti. My life was a museum she'd priced and closed. The door shut. The click was surgical. Every breath turned into a small negotiation with the air. A wind moved the birch leaves. They hissed like gossip. My suitcase wheels rasped over the path, small insects of sound. I kept my chin steady because some kinds of rain are inside you and if you tip your head the wrong way they spill. Halfway to the gate my phone vibrated, the old model with the spiderweb crack. An unknown number. I almost ignored it. Shame teaches you to look down. But memory nudged me. The envelope the lawyer had handed me at the wake. The one I tucked into my coat like a secret I was too tired to carry. "Mrs. Hart," a voice asked when I answered, low and careful as if stepping into a chapel. "This is Elaine Mercer from Barton and Voss, your husband's attorneys. Are you alone?" The birch leaves stilled. Even the street forgot to breathe. Behind me the house locked itself a second time. Inside the phone another door began to open. "Yes," I whispered into the phone, though the word tasted heavier than stone. "Alone." That was the truest thing I had ever said. "Good," the lawyer replied softly. "Please, read the envelope. Don't delay." I glanced at the paper still folded in my coat pocket. My daughter's laughter echoed faintly through the walls behind me, a cruel reminder of how quickly blood can turn to ice. My fingers trembled as I slid the envelope open. The ink on the first page seemed to lean toward me, urgent, alive. The will. My husband's handwriting in the margins. Notes, small arrows, a heart where my name appeared. He had thought of me in those final hours. He had left me more than I expected. Much more. The weight of the words pressed into my chest. Primary beneficiary, Evelyn Hart. Not my daughter. Not the child who had just pushed me out like unwanted furniture. The house, the accounts, the investments, they were mine. Every signature, notarized and stamped. My husband had placed his final trust not in the daughter who mocked me, but in the woman who had stood beside him until his last breath. But there was a condition. A date. 3 days later the will would be read publicly at the firm. Until then silence was my only ally. I folded the papers carefully, my pulse steadying. Suddenly the shame on the porch felt lighter, like a cloak I could shrug off. My daughter thought she had banished me, written me out of her new empire of millions. What she didn't know was that the empire had been built on sand, and the tide was coming in. I turned from the house. The neighbors still watched from their windows, half curious, half pitying. I let them see me walk away without a word, suitcase wheels singing against the pavement. Let them think I was ruined. Let her think she had won. Because in 3 days her smirk would shatter. And I would be standing in the very chair she thought she had stolen. The will was more than paper. It was a storm folded and sealed. And storms never knock before they break. The motel smelled of lemon cleaner and forgotten stories. Its neon sign flickered outside my window like a tired heartbeat. I sat on the edge of the bed, the envelope spread across my lap, reading the lines again and again until the words felt carved into me. My daughter's voice haunted the silence. You're useless now. The way her lips curled when she said it, mockery sharpened into a blade. But every time the memory cut, the wool stitched me back together. My husband's words were iron. Primary beneficiary, Evelyn Hart. 3 days. That was the space between humiliation and revelation. I kept to myself, moving like a shadow. I bought tea from the diner across the street, listening to the hum of strangers' conversations. Every face reminded me of neighbors who had seen me leave in disgrace. I wondered how many of them had already whispered about Evelyn Hart, discarded mother, pitted widow. I let them. Their whispers would soon dissolve in thunder. On the second night I stood before the mirror. My reflection looked older, yes, but also steadier. Grief had stripped me raw, but betrayal had lit a fire I didn't know still smoldered. I pressed my palm flat against the glass. Hold on, I told the woman staring back. Just hold on. By the morning of the third day, the motel clock ticked louder than my heartbeat. I dressed in my husband's favorite color, deep navy, and folded the wool neatly into my purse. Outside, the sky was restless, clouds gathering like witnesses waiting for a trial. The reading was at noon. And my daughter, she had no idea her stage was about to collapse beneath her feet. The law office stood tall and polished, its glass doors reflecting the gray sky. My heels clicked against the marble floor as I entered, the sound sharp, deliberate. Heads turned, curiosity trailing me like perfume. In the waiting room, my daughter sat draped in silk, laughter dripping from her lips as she boasted to a cousin. Dad left everything to me, she purred, twirling the diamond bracelet she'd already claimed. Mom? She'll manage. She always does. Her words slid across the room like oil, thick and suffocating. I took my seat without speaking. Our eyes met, hers smug, mine steady. She mistook my silence for defeat. That would be her first mistake. Mrs. Hart? Miss Hart, the secretary called. They're ready for you. We walked into the oak-paneled conference room. The lawyer, Elaine Mercer, rose from behind a heavy desk. Papers were stacked neatly, a single envelope resting on top, the storm I had carried in secret. Thank you all for coming, Elaine began. We're here to execute the last will and testament of Richard Hart. My daughter leaned back, crossing her legs, her smile rehearsed for victory. Let's make this quick, she said. Elaine's gaze sharpened as she opened the file. The room hushed. Richard Hart, in full capacity, leaves his estate, valued at $33 million, to his wife, Evelyn Hart. Primary beneficiary. Sole inheritor. The words cracked the air like lightning. My daughter's smile faltered, lips trembling into disbelief. What? She whispered, voice small, suddenly childlike. Elaine continued, unshaken. Miss Hart will receive a modest trust, conditional upon conduct, but the estate belongs to Mrs. Hart. The silence that followed was heavy enough to bend the air. My daughter's face drained, pale as porcelain, eyes darting wildly, searching for a lifeline that did not exist. And in that moment, the shame she had painted onto me 3 days ago slid back onto her skin, permanent as ink. Her chair scraped loudly against the polished floor as she stood, palms slamming the table. This is a mistake, she cried, her voice splitting the quiet room. Dad promised me everything. Everyone knows it. Elaine didn't flinch. She slid another paper forward, signatures glittering with ink. Mr. Hart's will was updated 2 months before his passing. It's final. Legally binding. He was very clear in his intentions. My daughter's eyes darted to me, wild, burning. You knew, she spat. You knew all along. I let the silence linger, let it stretch like a blade between us. Finally I spoke, calm, measured, every word laid like a brick in a wall she couldn't climb. I only knew my husband trusted me. That's all. Her face twisted. Trusted you? You were nothing but his shadow. I handled the parties, the guests, the image. You barely existed. I looked at her, really looked. The child I once cradled now clawing at illusions of grandeur. The neighbors' laughter, the sneer on her lips as she threw me out, the mockery as she paraded me in shame, it all replayed in my mind. And now, stripped of her performance, she looked small. A girl drowning in the very ocean she had claimed. Elaine cleared her throat. Miss Hart, please compose yourself. This meeting is being recorded. The color drained further from my daughter's cheeks. She slumped back into her chair, jaw tight, eyes brimming with something she would never admit: fear. For years I had carried the weight of being silent, of being dismissed. But as she sat across from me, unraveling thread by thread, I realized something. This wasn't about inheritance. It was about truth. My husband had seen her greed, her arrogance, and he had chosen differently. And for the first time I didn't feel like the discarded widow. I felt like the storm he knew I would become. The meeting ended with signatures and seals, but the true weight hung in the silence that followed. My daughter didn't move. She sat there, staring at the polished table as if it could rewrite the words she had just heard. Her silk blouse clung to her shoulders, but the power she once draped herself in was gone. Elaine gathered the papers. "Mrs. Hart, will transfer the estate into your name immediately. Accounts, properties, assets, all secured." She looked at me with quiet respect, then at my daughter with the kind of pity reserved for those who authored their own downfall. When I stood, the room seemed to tilt in my favor. My daughter scrambled to her feet, her voice trembling. "Mom, please. You can't do this to me." I turned slowly, meeting her desperate gaze. "I'm not doing anything to you," I said softly. "Your father made this choice." Her lip quivered, but behind the tears was fury. "The neighbors saw you leave like a beggar. I made sure of it. They'll never forget." I stepped closer, lowering my voice. "Then let them remember. Because when they see who truly holds this house, this fortune, this name, they'll remember that too. And they'll remember who lied." Her breath hitched. A single tear cut down her cheek, smudging the mask of confidence she always wore. I didn't touch her, didn't comfort her. Some lessons aren't softened, they're carved. As I walked out of the office, the glass doors swung wide, sunlight spilling across me. For the first time in days, I lifted my chin fully. The shame I carried onto that porch had dissolved, replaced with something cleaner, sharper. The world outside still buzzed, unaware of what had shifted. But I knew. And soon everyone else would too. 3 hours later, I stood at the gate of the very house I had been cast out of. The birch trees whispered above me, the same ones that had witnessed my humiliation. Only now the key in my hand wasn't trembling brass. It was power freshly reissued in my name. I pushed the gate open. The sound was steady, not hesitant. Neighbors peeked through blinds, their curiosity sparking like moths to flame. The same faces that had watched me stumble away days ago now watched me return. Upright, composed, unstoppable. The front door clicked beneath my touch. Inside, the air smelled faintly of roses and perfume, her perfume. She had already claimed the space, moved through it as if it had always been hers. But it wasn't. Not anymore. Not ever. My daughter came rushing down the stairs, silk robe trailing, eyes wide. "You can't just walk in." I set my purse on the table, calm as still water. "Correction," I said, my voice carrying like a verdict. "This is my house. You are the guest here." Her face collapsed in disbelief. No, this was supposed to be mine." I opened the folder the lawyer had handed me. Deeds, transfers, bank seals. All with my name. I laid them out one by one on the dining table like cards in a winning hand. "Read them," I said. She shook her head, trembling, the arrogance draining into panic. For the first time she looked young again. Not a conqueror, not a heiress, just my daughter, afraid of a truth too heavy for her to carry. Outside, a breeze rustled the curtains. The neighbors leaned closer to their windows, though they couldn't hear the words. Still, they would see the shift. The mother who walked away in disgrace now standing tall in victory. I closed the folder. My voice was quiet, final. "You wrote me off. But your father wrote you out." That night, the house was silent, except for the faint echo of her sobs drifting down the hallway. I sat at the same oak dining table where she had once mocked me, where laughter had been used as a weapon. The documents lay neatly stacked beside me, glowing under the warm lamp like a crown of paper and ink. She crept in, her face pale, stripped of every illusion. "Mom, please." "I didn't mean." Her voice cracked, the arrogance gone, leaving only fragments of a daughter who had forgotten what love looked like. I met her eyes, steady, unshaken. "You laughed while the neighbors watched me leave in shame. You paraded my grief like it was entertainment. And now you stand here asking for mercy, not because you've changed, but because you lost." Her tears spilled freely. "I have nothing. Where will I go?" I folded my hands. "The will left you a trust. Conditional. You'll survive, but only if you learn. I leaned closer, my voice low and certain. This house, this fortune, this legacy is mine. And not because I begged for it, but because your father knew my worth, even when you didn't. She opened her mouth, but no words came. Silence, thick and unyielding, filled the room. For once she had nothing left to weaponize. I stood, sliding the documents into my bag. As I walked past her, I paused by the doorway. Remember this night, I said softly. Because shame wears brighter than silk. And tomorrow, when the neighbors see me open this door again, they'll know the truth. The lamp flickered, shadows bowing along the walls. And with that, I left her sitting in the ruins of her own arrogance.